You're listening to the Complete Human podcast, hosted by co-founders Janna Breslin and Evan DeMarco. We share authentic conversations about wellness, longevity, personal growth, and biooptimization, along with inspiring stories that encourage community and social responsibility. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey guys and gals. I wanted to let you know that we have a very special deal for all Complete Human listeners. Are you interested in biooptimizing your sex life? If so, head on over to getmyphoenix.com/completehuman and enter Complete Human at checkout to save 20% off your Phoenix today. That's getmyphoenix.com with code COMPLETEHUMAN to save 20%. It's impossible to talk about quality erections without discussing the important role nitric oxide plays in healthy sexual function. With Complete Human Resbeat, you can amplify the results you get from your Phoenix with a delicious daily drink mix that supports optimal nitric oxide production with the added benefit of resveratrol, the longevity gene. Go to store.completehuman.com and use podcast20 to save an extra 20% on Complete Human Resbeat. That's store.completehuman.com with code podcast20. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Janna Breslin
and Evan DeMarco, as we talk about the human potential, as we talk about the human experience, living longer, getting more out of our life, getting more out of our health span. We've had the pleasure of interviewing some doctors who've really brought some interesting medical technologies to the realm of sexual health. How do we optimize our sexual health as we get older and older and older, especially at ages where traditionally sexual health starts to diminish, especially in men? But what we haven't covered are a lot of the emotional, cognitive, really some of the dare I say, like the human elements of sexual health. And so with that in mind, we are so stoked to have Susan Bratton on. I've known Susan for a number of years, and she's absolutely one of the most amazing, delightful women you will ever meet. Her breadth of knowledge in the realm of sexual health it's kind of freaky is what it is. And so, I guess without further ado, Susan Bratton, welcome to the Complete Human Podcast.
I'm feeling so complete already.
That is the goal. That is the goal.
And I always say I cover a vast surface of human sexuality. But what I think that I'm really, really good at, in all honesty, is heterosexual, monogamous, passionate lovemaking. That's kind of my sweet spot. And, if you're going to pick a sweet spot, that's a pretty good flavor. So
yeah, no doubt.
I wanted to say a couple of things before we start. And that is that a lot of times when I'm, sharing my knowledge of being a sexpert for 15 years, writing 34 books and programs, publishing the work of other amazing sexperts, working with literally over these last 15 years, millions of people of all ages around the world, doing primary research on them and answering deeply personal questions on a nearly daily basis. I've gotten a good sense of what the typical issues are across a wide variety of people. Like, I just know what gets people caught up in their own underpanties. And so I like to start off by saying that a lot of times I talk about the masculine and feminine, or the man and the woman. And I want to just throw down that does not in any way, shape, or form mean that I think that's how stuff's supposed to be or is, that I'm extremely supportive of gender fluidity, non-binary. I have the full spectrum and complement of possibility in everything I say. But sometimes it's just easier to turn it into the boy versus the girl type of thing. And wherever you are on that spectrum in this moment, because our sexuality is such a fluid, moving possibility, if we allow it to be, that I want you to just take it in and apply it as needed to your personal life.
That's a great intro. And I love that you said that. And I think even when we go as far back as like the Kinsey scale, right? I mean, there's nothing as concrete as, it's not just hetero or homo. There's just this entire spectrum in between. And we all fall in that in some category. So I think that, for the context of conversation, it really is easy to just say boy, girl, man, woman, but we encompass everybody. And, this is an equal opportunity show. We're all complete humans, or we're trying to be anyway.
Yeah.
So
Ever evolving and opening to our orgasmic and intimate potential. I like to think about things in both the body side of things. I like how you divide your kind of conversations into the spiritual and the body and the emotional and all those kinds of things. And the the thing that I've learned that's interesting about kind of looking at things in quadrants, if you will, is that I have a three-legged stool that I think about sexuality on that I thought would be interesting to you too.
let's
I
talk about
started
that.
out really looking at sex and looking at it from a techniques perspective, orgasmic pleasure. How could you create more orgasms?
Hey everyone, I want to talk about blood flow. It is essential for healthy sexual function. Age, diet, and lifestyle can all impact how blood flows to certain areas. And as you'll soon find out, this is something I know a thing or two about. Now, there's a way to break up microplaques, improve blood flow, and even regrow old tissue, all from the privacy of your own home. The Phoenix is a revolutionary tool for sexual optimization that has men from their 20s all the way to 70s and beyond reclaiming their sexual confidence and bio-optimizing their bedroom life. Listeners of Complete Human can save 20% on the Phoenix. Head over to getmyphoenix.com/completehuman for 20% off your Phoenix. That's getmyphoenix.com/completehuman for 20% off your very own Phoenix.
And so maybe the first, I don't know, number of years of my work was what are all the different, how can men and women both have 15 different kinds of orgasms? And one of the 15 is wild card, which means that it's unlimited. So there's that piece of it. And then how can you make all those orgasms happen? That was kind of like my 1.0 of my journey as a, trusted hot sex advisor to millions. My 2.0 journey was, how do we talk about sex together? Because we need to use our words. Because when you don't use your words, then so much goes missing of the opportunity when we're talking about the human potential of sexual intimacy, connection, and pleasure. And then I realized about a decade into it, oh, well, what's really tripping a lot of people up is not the technique or the communication skills, it's health, which you mentioned, like you're really familiar with the fact that men have erectile dysfunction because Pfizer's made that a, really common thing. But women have as much sexual dysfunction, physical sexual dysfunction as men. And a lot of it is based on blood flow that's very underappreciated in the female genitalia. And so one of the nerdy things I was thinking that would be fun to talk about today, maybe we can save it toward the end because I do want to talk about the orgasmic potential piece of it. But just how important blood flow is and how women's genitals work almost the same as men's. And yet we don't even think about a female erectile function. And
You never hear that. It's
you don't
never
hear it.
talked on.
You heard it here first.
Exactly.
So we're going to
Well,
talk
on the Complete Human Show.
so we're going to talk about lady boners.
Lady boners.
Yeah. So techniques, communication, and health are the three legs of the stool from, my perspective.
So this whole conversation, Susan, reminds me of my wedding day. And bear with me for a second. Oh, by the way, the 50 Shades of Grey that we're wearing was completely unplanned, and it just so happened that we're talking to Susan Bratton while we're wearing that. Yeah. But my soon-to-be father-in-law, as we're getting ready for the wedding, comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, I want to have a conversation with you," and I'm expecting some like deep thing. And he's like, "So here's the deal." He goes, "In the beginning, when you get married, you fuck everybody. You fuck everywhere." I'm like. And this is the first time I've heard my soon-to-be father-in-law use these words. And he goes, and then about 3-4 years later, he's like, then you only fuck like every Saturday night on the bed. And he goes, and then 10 years after that, the only time that there's fucking is when you're walking down the hall saying like, fuck you. And I'm like, oh, okay. It was an awkward conversation with my soon-to-be father-in-law. But I think I love what you talk about is that monogamy has the potential to grow healthy sexual relation. You can grow healthy sex in monogamous relationships for years and years and years, if not decades. But we seem to almost think the opposite of that in this modern Western culture.
It doesn't have to be that way.
It does not have to be that way. It's so true. That monotony of monogamy is just a lack of great ways to do fun new things together. It desire. I learned a really interesting little simple equation from, I think it was Deborah Anapol or Dossie Eaton. One of the, Dossie wrote Ethical Slut. Deborah wrote The 7 Natural Laws of Love. You know, I've had some amazing mentors, and I went to a workshop of theirs one time, and they said, desire is a very simple equation. It's 1 + 1 = 2. And the first one is novelty or variety, danger, freshness, new relationship energy, excitement. And number 2 is safety, security, confidence, communication, the stuff that makes you feel safe. So novelty plus security equals desire. You can't cultivate and improve and increase desire if all it is the same old, safe and secure. You need the freshy new relationship energy thing, which is why sex is so hot when you first get together, and why if you don't tend to the flame, it dies out.
Hey guys, Janna Breslin here again. Most of you have heard me speak on the benefits of beets. Beets are well known as a powerful superfood and help the body create nitric oxide, the miracle molecule that supports a healthy cardiovascular system and sexual function. As an athlete, the nitric oxide boosting benefits help me power through workouts better than any artificial pre-workout I've ever taken. Now, this is why we created Complete Human Resbeet. You get all of the benefits of organic beets with additional anti-aging support from fermented resveratrol. Resveratrol is a longevity gene activator and is something I have turned to for years to help support anti-aging and optimal health. If you're not a fan of the taste of beets, we've got you covered with our all-natural and delicious dark cherry flavor. I take Resbeet twice a day, and I have to say, I feel incredible. Head on over to store.completehuman.com and enter the code podcast at checkout to get 20% off.
Interesting. So how do we, in the realm of desire, talk about the female, let's say orgasmic potential, the female arousal, the female erection, the lady boner?
Yeah, the lady boner.
I'm just going to hashtag that for the rest of the year.
Yes, it's an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, clit boner is what most people call it too, clitoral boner.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, or clitoral erection if you want to get like super fancy. So
That's just a tongue twister, pun intended.
The interesting thing of and that makes it even more fun. I'd like to use something I call my banana diagram, and sometimes I'll get on a summit with an actual banana in my hand, but you can picture this as you're listening to us. And this banana, so you're really familiar with the penis and how when it gets erect, it looks like a banana and it's hard. And a guy typically doesn't have as much fun if he doesn't have a hard penis. The thing is that if you look at that banana, all of the fruit inside that skin, call that erectile tissue. Those are the corpus spongiosum and cavernosum of the penile chambers that are the spongy tissue that fills with blood to get an erection. Well, what's interesting is that if you look at how much of a man's erectile tissue is external to his body versus internal, it's about half the banana. Half of his erectile tissue is external to his body and his penis, but his penis actually goes inside his body and curves downward toward his prostate and his testicles. So his penis actually looks like a tongue. And I always say to guys, don't think about your penis as a piston. Think about it as a tongue or a finger that can beckon. The more that you can articulate your penis and the less you think about it just going in and out, the more, a better lover you become. And the more that you think about getting the internal part of your erectile tissue full of blood by touching and palpating and suckling and doing all kinds of things to it, the better your erectile function, your pleasure, your sensation, your orgasmic intensity is going to be. Then if you take a woman and you take that same banana, she has the same amount of erectile tissue in her vulva, which is all of the parts of her vagina, her clitoris, etc. but only the stem of the banana is sticking out of her body in the form of the clitoral glands, the very tip of her clitoris, which is her mini penis. And 95% of that fruity, delicious, creamy center of that banana is inside her body. So what happens is women are not even aware that they need to have a clitoral erection to get to the level of orgasmic potential that every woman is able to have. And what's interesting is that if you think about the vaginal canal, the erectile tissue of the woman's vulva wraps all the way around it. So there's the clitoral tip, which is the glands, and then there's a clitoral shaft, which does get erect. And then there are two little arms called crura that drape over the top of the vaginal opening. And there's vestibular bulbs, which are the clitoral legs, which are under the labia majora on each side of the fur to the opening of her vagina. And then at the bottom of her vagina, between the bottom of her vaginal canal and her rectum, there's something called the perineal sponge that looks a lot like a prostate. Interestingly, it's this big spongy thing that's under. And on the top of the vaginal canal is her urethral sponge, which is a long, those extruded pool noodles that your daughter plays with in the pool, Evan?
Yes, I do.
Those extruded pool noodles, the urethra is surrounded by erectile tissue that looks like an extruded pool noodle. And that runs just above the top of the vaginal canal, and it comes right out onto the face of the vulva, below the clitoris and above the opening to the vagina. There's spongy tissue right there in the slit of the vagina. And all that is erectile tissue, literally wrapped around the vagina. And women are very focused on, I want a clitoral orgasm, touch my clit, touch my clit, touch my clit. But the clit is just this giant starfish that's all inside there. And then there's the perineal sponge and the urethral sponge. People call it a G spot. It's not a spot, it's a very big area that has two different locations you can access it. And so what I try to do is I try to get women to understand that blood flow is as important for her as it is for him. She needs 20 minutes to get fully engorged with manual stimulation, oral pleasuring, before she should ever be penetrated. And if she can get that blood flow really pumping into there, she's going to have orgasms from intercourse literally without even touching the tip of the clitoris, because everything's become engorged or tumesced. Those are two words that basically mean full of blood. Erect is another word for it. So for most women, they struggle to achieve an orgasm. For many women, they believe that they're just not the kind of woman who can have an orgasm from intercourse. But every woman can have an orgasm from intercourse. It just takes understanding that it's possible and knowing that you just need to have the time to bring the blood flow in. So when you think about that banana, it's really interesting to think about the fact that we as women have as much erectile tissue as our men, but it doesn't really get talked about much.
It's so true. Can you ever look at your pool noodles the same way?
No, I can't. In fact, I think I'm going to go throw them all away.
Well, especially when they're in the pool, you can make some water squirt out of them, and then that can be like female ejaculation, which all women can also do.
And we're definitely going to talk about that. But yeah, I think that's one of the issues is that, we definitely squirt with the pool noodles. So now my brain's just going to go to weird places in the summertime.
They're not weird. It's good. It's a good place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to you talk about this, it's just, it's velvety the way that you explain some of this stuff. It's intoxicating. So we talk about that, right? And I think before we kind of get more into the physiology and some of the techniques and the potential of human sexual potential, one of the things I think that we need to address is kind of the how do I say this?
Was this my question?
No, this wasn't.
Okay, it wasn't.
I wanted to say this delicately, but I'm not going to. Is porn and kind of our view of human sexuality one of the reasons that we're not spending enough time making sure that we've adequately to mess the women of the world.
I love when you say adequately to messed, that turns me on.
That
Like
was a
that's
great
how you turn,
usage.
that's how you turn on a sex nerd. You're like, I'm going to make sure you're adequately to messed.
That's
I
the
mean,
hashtag for the rest of the year.
adequately to messed. It's a great,
That's
great
so
term.
funny. There's a couple of things. Number one, our puritanical values. Number two, religiosity. Number three, pornography. Number four, lack of any kind of education besides pornography. So a vacuum of information, genital shame and insecurity, sexual trauma, um, no good models. The media does a terrible job in addition to porn. All of these collectively are factors. The good news is it's changing because of people like Evan and Janna having conversations with sexperts like myself and many other wonderful people in the world who are devoting our time to giving people the information they need. Your personal growth and your sexual growth and sexual satisfaction are two sides of the same coin, just like your libido is another side of the same coin of your overall health. When your health is bad, your libido is down. I know the minute I feel good or bad by how turned on I can be and how much desire I have. If I'm not well, I have no sexual desire. When I start to become well again, my desire begins to come back. And so for a lot of people, they think to themselves, oh, my libido is gone. It must be my hormones. And when I explain to them, it's not actually your hormones, especially for women. Loss of estrogen doesn't ruin your sex drive at all. It has literally almost nothing to do with it. It's testosterone. And when you lose estrogen, you actually have a higher testosterone to estrogen ratio, which means you should probably be hornier. Yeah. It's loss of blood flow that actually depresses your desire because you're no longer lubricating like you used to. So using nitric oxide supplements and taking really high quality good fats are the kinds of things that keep your cardiovascular system pumping, because especially for women, we don't have any glands in our vagina that lubricate us. It actually comes from the lubrication is from our blood plasma, and it seeps through our vaginal walls, just like the female ejaculate comes from our blood plasma and seeps through the Skene's glands, through that urethral sponge, and right into the urethra where it's ejaculated out. So our physiology, masculine and feminine, is very, very similar. Men have ejaculatory orgasms, but they don't have to. The ejaculation and the orgasm are entirely separate systems in the body. Men can have full body orgasms without ejaculation, or ejaculate when they want to, but they're not. It doesn't necessarily make your orgasm better to ejaculate. You can learn how to have full body male multiple orgasms. You can have prostate orgasms. You can have all kinds of orgasms. Same with women. We can have orgasms that are from clitoral stimulation, G-spot stimulation, anterior fornix, cervix, perineal sponge, rectum, breast, nipple, tongue, mouth, throat, hair, spanking, foot rubs, belly rubs, suggestions, think-offs, all of these things.
Can we get a list of that, Susan? I just want to start working on one of those one day at a time.
That is a good goal. And often I like to call myself an orgasmanaut. I've explored the outer reaches of orgasmic potential, and then I shine a light on the map to the territory so you can find your way there too. If you don't know that you can have all these kinds of orgasms, you're not having them. The minute you know about them, you're like, okay, now what do I need to do? Your response was exactly. And so it's that sexual education, like I'm going to put attention on not just my personal development, but also my sexual development throughout my life. I'm going to keep learning new things. We're going to learn new techniques in the bedroom. Yes, we're going to do G-spot awakening. Yes, I'm going to try male multiple orgasm. We're going to do expanded orgasm. We're going to try, sensation play, whatever it is that keeps you trying new things. And it's what keeps developing your sexual potential and your orgasmic potential. And it's really fun when couples do this together and they're constantly learning new things.
Oh, I love that.
So when I hear the term orgasmanaut, I think of an elevated state of consciousness. I think of something that's more outside of yourself. Can you explain a little bit more of that?
Yeah, thank you for noticing that it was definitely an outer space kind of a reference. In my mid 40s, and I'm 59 this year, so about 15 years ago, my husband and I almost got divorced because our sex life had fallen by the wayside, as your, original father-in-law had warned you about. And we
He was
followed
married
the
3
path.
times, by the way. So,
Does that make sense now?
yeah, I'm starting to connect a lot of dots on this podcast.
We followed the path of our sex life going downhill and swirling down the toilet instead of getting on what I like to call the upward pleasure spiral. And we said, well, let's not lose our marriage and ruin our daughter's family life over this. Let's try to fix it. And we were lucky enough to live in Northern California, kind of the hotbed of the human potential movement and the sexuality, the sexual revolution. And so we started taking a lot of sex workshops. We learned, we took, tantric classes and Human Awareness Institute and orgasmic meditation. And we discovered this stroking technique, this clitoral stroking technique that has many, many names. It's kind of like yoga or a martial art where it has its certain form, but people have put their own spin on it. So this technology, this technique for female orgasm, what our version of it that we have an online home study course about is called expanded orgasm. We worked with one of the original creators, PhD, doctor of orgasmic study, and developed
God,
this.
I went into the way wrong profession.
I know. We learned this clitoral stroking technique that basically has 5 strokes. There's an opening stroke. There's 3. There's, like a couple of opening strokes, a bread and butter stroke, and a closing stroke. And when you follow that form, you can take a woman from the kind of orgasms that most women have, which I consider to be the male orgasm. I consider them to be the patriarchal view of orgasm, which is I'm having an orgasm, I climax, and I'm done, kind of the, the Kinsey type of thing, whoop, I'm going up, boo, I've crested him over and I'm done. And maybe I can have a few of them and I'm up, consider myself multi-orgasmic, so I can stack a few of those together. Well, women have, and so do men, an unlimited capacity for orgasm. And it turns out that this particular clitoral stroking technique keeps the clitoris from being fatigued or overstroked. It's actually a very light stroke. It doesn't take much to orgasm. Orgasms are inside you waiting to come out. You just have to tickle them out a little bit. You just have to, tease them out. And this stroke technique helps a woman not only take that moment of climax and expand it like taffy, like pulling time, like a time warp where she hits that peak and then she just stays in that peak. And then she can add another one that even feels more intense and goes longer, another one that goes more intense and even longer, even longer. And so it's like a stair step up of these stairs that keep lengthening.
Stairway to heaven.
Stairway to the universe,
Right.
because it is spiritual sexuality. One of the reasons this technique has been called orgasmic meditation is that the couple actually enters into a trance state. Meditation and orgasm are both theta brainwave states. And when you are in orgasm and your partner is stroking you and you're riding the strokes and they're taking you into the orgasms, you're limbically connected and you're in this place where everything falls away and you can literally feel God, touch Gaia, feel that thing that happens when you meditate and you end up, feeling like you have palpably experienced human and living connection to all others, that web of life. There's a lot of words for it, nirvana, whatever it might be. So you can get into that state together and be in a conjoined trance state that is orgasmic meditation. And when I was first learning this, Janna, I called my mentor, Dr. Patty Taylor, and I was like, I'm afraid. I feel like I'm literally going out into places I've never been orgasmically. And I feel like I'm on the ledge, and I'm still on the ledge in this dark space, but I'm afraid to let go because will I come back? And she said, let go. You will come back. Let go. And I let go. And I mean, that was when I started having spiritual experiences in orgasm with my husband. And he experienced it with me. It was almost like we became one mind in this spiritual connection. It's all a heady lot of things to say for a little tiny clit stroke. It's incredible. But we've had an expanded orgasm practice for 15 years. They're also called deliberate orgasms, extended massive orgasms. They have a lot of different names. And many people teach variations of this. So it's got a lot of names. So sometimes they're called due dates, DO, deliberate orgasm, the due date. My husband and I had a due date just a couple of days ago. And because I'd had COVID and I've been recovering, I said to him, man, I really feel like I lost my ability to stay in that sensation. We need to do this more often now that I'm feeling better. I've got to get back to where I was. I've lost ground. But I can literally remember feeling like, if I come this much, can I recover from it? And I have a girlfriend who has a new lover, and she'll go visit him, and they'll have sex for 6 days straight for hours at a time. And when she comes home, she'll be a little depressed and cranky and upset. And I'm like, you can't go that high without coming back to earth. When you come that much, you have to be able to give yourself time to ease back into life. You don't go out and touch God and then just like go make a tomato sandwich.
It almost sounds like a psychedelic experience, like a very eye-opening psychedelic experience. And I absolutely love that you touch on the spiritual, energetic side of this. And it really makes me think of, there's so many one-night stands and people that just go out, they find someone to just, and it's there for one reason, it's just pleasure, and that's about it. But are we limiting ourselves when we can't get that deep, especially with a partner? And like, what does that do to our energetic selves when we're sharing that energy with someone who maybe it's not that, I'm having a hard time explaining like what I'm trying to ask, I guess. But if you're going into a situation with someone who you don't necessarily know, you don't necessarily have that trust, what does that do to our internal energetic self?
I think you can have unconscious sex, which is the sex with someone you barely know, that's friction of genitals rubbing together, and you can get off and have an orgasm. But there's nothing like soulful sex and heart-connected, conscious lovemaking that is extremely vulnerable. And I'll tell you that there's nothing that the masculine loves more than a woman who collapses after having sex because it's been so good that she can basically not talk. And one of the things that I tell men is, if you want to be a really incredible lover, also surrender to that level. Give that woman your full presence. Stop trying to do her and just be with her. And then things get really, really good when the egoic piece has gone away and you are vulnerable and connected and full of love for each other. And every moment feels like a level of bliss where you've come home in a way to each other. Living in the meat sacks that we all cart around can be a lonely thing. But when you meet in that spiritual bliss of pleasure and you really just go for it, it's incredible. Women have a hard time letting go of body image issues. That's a woman's cross to bear. Men have a hard time letting go of trying to do everything perfectly and make her come instead of just being there and allowing the comes to come out.
That's a great way to put it.
I
God,
know.
like the sound bites for this are just fucking
Yeah,
fantastic.
they're awesome. Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting topic too, because we've heard so much that when you are having sex with someone, when you're making love, it is an energy transference, right? You're absorbing their energy, they're absorbing yours. And I think that's something that maybe we should all be more mindful of, is be more mindful of who you're sharing that time and energy with, because it can definitely be quite like a spiritual energetic experience, and you want to make sure that you are absorbing someone's energy that is good for you.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me think.
There is something to be said for fucking around.
Oh, absolutely.
And the thing that's good about it is that you get a lot of experience having sex with a wide variety of people, and everybody has sex differently and has different parts, and your bodies fit together in different ways. So yes, it's really, really good to have deeply connected, heart connected, intimate, conscious sex that keeps getting better and better. And equally, there are times in a person's life when they're like, I just want to fuck a whole bunch of people. And if you can do that safely, if you understand how to have the safe sex talk, if you understand how to manage your boundaries, and if you understand what tests to get and how frequently, so that you're staying physically safe with each other, then there's no reason why you shouldn't also enjoy, whether you're single or you're in a coupled experience and you're, making love with another couple, or you're doing parallel play, or you've got, a man or a woman who wants to come into your coupledom and, have sex with you for like a month or a weekend, or until it doesn't work anymore. There's nothing wrong with doing those things too, if they're right for you. And people come in and out of wanting to be exclusive and then wanting to open things up, and it's a flow.
So that's a great question. And I think that we've talked to a lot of people on my other podcast, Single Daddy Daily or Single Parents Daily, who oftentimes will get into other relationships. They'll try polyamorous, the whole movement, right? And they'll do it not because they're feeling energetically pulled to do it, but because things have gone bad in their relationship. So I'd like to talk a little bit in your experience about how do you know if you're in a committed monogamous relationship that it's time to really open those doors, when it's right versus when it's we're trying to fix a problem.
Well, opening your relationship to try to fix any problem is always a bad idea. The only time you should do it is when both people are completely comfortable and definitely both want to do it. And one of the most important aspects of having an open relationship is that the two people in the relationship have a super solid foundation where both people feel completely included and everything is a plus up. Never something where one of the people feels marginalized. And most people, frankly, are not ready to open their relationships. People do it way too soon, and it is not right for most people. That's why when we started, I said, my world is heterosexual, heart-connected, monogamous, passionate lovemaking, because that's what most people's comfort is. And I can help people who are in coupledom who want to make their sex life better with very simple things like do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing. And they'll be like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. But getting into like the jealousy and compersion conversations of navigating poly, that's so tedious to me. I just like to help people have incredible sex together.
God, I seriously went into the wrong line of work.
I think you did.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about where all of this leads. Human sexual potential. You're an orgasmanaut. You've been to the outer reaches. You've really touched the source, shall we say. How do other people concretely begin that journey? You're in a relationship, you're in a monogamous relationship. You want to go where you've been. How do people get there?
There's a couple things. I would say one of my most popular books is a book called Sexual Soulmates, The 6 Essentials to Connected Sex. And there are two fundamental pieces. The first one is something that I call the Sexual Soulmate Pact. And you can download that at Sexual Soulmate Pact, P-A-C-T, like an agreement, sexualsoulmatepact.com. And basically, it's a communication technique. Remember how I said it's techniques, communication skills, and sexual health? And you got to have all three of those things kind of humming. Well, I really think that the foundation of arousal is in relaxation. And this is something that a lot of people don't quite understand. They think I have to turn her on or turn him on. And for the feminine, she has to be grounded in comfort, safety, security, and relaxation before her desire begins to flow and spring up out of her. And the very first way to make people feel safe is to be able to say anything you want in the bedroom and have your partner be like, thank you, that was awesome. How's this? Is this better? And so many people are afraid to say what they need, or they don't know what they want. They just know what they have isn't it. And I bring them back to your body wisdom. Your body knows what it wants in every moment. And when you begin to remember that we are just Homo sapien, which is we're not human beings sitting at the base of the tree of life, looking up and seeing the branches with the dolphins and whales and the monkeys and the ponies and the puppies. We are on the branch of the tree of life with the great apes. So we're sitting next to the bonobos and the great apes, the chimpanzees and the orangutans and all those crazy monkeys. We are crazy monkeys. We have hormonal cycles. Women's are 28 days. Men's are daily cycles. He's horny in the morning, gals, right? So when we start thinking about the fact that we're different all the time, every day, depending on sleep levels, blood sugar, etc. And then we go, okay, well, I'm just going to tell you what I need in the moment because it's always going to be different. Then the male partner starts really winning because he's getting clued into what's working in the moment. And what he wants most is to do a good job and to give you incredible pleasure as the feminine. So your job as the feminine is to give him the data that he needs, whether that's moaning, biofeedback, actual words and direction, etc. And his job is to love getting the feedback because it's not failure. It's what he needs to do that incredible job. And so once I can get couples to really just start flowing with the conversation and saying everything they need, once I can get her to understand that he loves her body exactly how it is and to let go of worrying about it, once I can get him to understand that he just needs to really be present with her and show her how turned on she gets him, things really start to flow then. And then you can layer on the sex techniques and the learning new skills and the role play and tying her up and, all the fun little things you can try. So I think that is probably the most important piece, is that communication piece, the Sexual Soulmate Pact.
Cool. Well, I think we will definitely put that in. Well, we're going to put it all in the show notes, but guys and gals, definitely check that out. I know that, in all the conversations we've had about this, communication always comes back to the essence of great sex. And
Yeah.
I think it's, we've done such a disservice to women in modern Western society with this kind of patriarchal, almost Judeo-Christian view of sex. It's like, it's only for procreation. Therefore, we don't have to spend any time doing all of the legwork to get her taken care of. So I'm just going to put it in, make a baby, and then go to work.
Oh, there's so much more. And that's,
I don't think there. Oh, sorry, Janna. Sorry.
Oh,
what
no,
did you say?
yeah, just to go off of that too, like there's so much more. And I think people are just limited by their own minds and their own knowledge. So this is amazing information, I think, for people to take on.
There was another thing I was thinking about, and that is that women need a lot of verbal appreciation and encouragement. Women need to be simultaneously adored and found sexually irresistible. And if all you do is objectify her, she feels like a piece of meat. But if all you do is adore her, she doesn't feel sexy. And I wrote a book called Dirty Talk, with 5 kinds of dirty talk that doesn't feel weird, and the kinds of things that it's basically pillow talk and lovers talk and sexual appreciation and sexual encouragement. It's at dirtytalkbook.com. It's free. And I think that's a really
Hold on, I'm
important.
going to download that right now.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear all the sexy things you're about to say. I literally tell you sexy things to say in the book because for a lot of people, you know, that phrase, I'm a man of few words, that's actually really common, that men aren't as articulate. And then if you put them in the bedroom, they're like, I don't know what to say. She got mad at the last thing. So I really try to give guys, especially, lots of ways that they can speak to her in the way she needs to be spoken to in the bedroom, to encourage her to surrender to her pleasure and just to let loose with all of the, hunger that is inside her that wants to come out if you can make it safe for her.
Wonderful. We don't have a whole lot of time, but there's one other thing that I want to talk about. This has become one of those weird urban myth. Is it fact? Is it fiction? Somehow it's become like a social media thing, but let's talk about squirting.
Okay, great.
So clearly not fiction.
No.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this because I think people would really like to know. It's just urine. What is it? Give us the Susan Bratton deep dive, very deep dive on squirting.
The really
deep
deep
dive.
dive.
See if I can make my
It's
voice
so deep.
I want to say balls deep now, but is that overkill? Yeah, okay, cinnamon.
Not for me.
There you go.
I am the queen of sexual innuendo, though. I love every silly little sexy wordplay you can possibly think of, because life is just too short not to.
That's the only way I know how to speak.
Right. It's true.
And in fact, quite candidly, of all of the podcasts, we didn't start off with the safe word because we have a safe word on this podcast, and it's cinnamon.
Oh, cinnamon.
So yeah, I didn't expect that you would ever need it. But we always tell our guests that if I push a line and you need to stop, just say cinnamon.
That's so cute. I love it. Ours is stripes.
Stripes?
Yeah.
That's
I think
good.
it's really good to share your safe words with people so that people are like, oh yeah, we don't have a safe word. That's a good idea, because sometimes you'll be out and you'll be, as a couple or whatever, you'll be at a party someday post COVID and you'll be flirting with somebody and they'll take it wrong and you'll just be like, hey babe, stripes. And my husband just escorts me immediately. He's like, oh, excuse me, I got to grab her for a second. Well, hang on, to be continued. And he's got me out of there in a flash because,
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have the cinnamon stripes.
Even better. I just created a new cereal.
Oh, yes.
All right, back to squirting.
Okay, squirting. Okay. So I have a program called Female Liquid Orgasm. And there are some free reports that you get when you go to femaleliquidorgasm.com, because I won't be able to tell you everything in this short time, but let me give you the down and dirty. Squirting is real. It's not pee. Every woman can do it. Some women naturally do it. Other women learn how to do it. It is fluid that comes down through that urethral tube, which is basically the pee tube that goes from your kidneys to your bladder, out the tube, and shoots out of the front of your vulva when you pee as a woman. And what happens is that there's, just like when a man ejaculates or he pees, it comes out of the same tube, right?
Yes.
And his body
For the most
knows, his body, unless he's got an issue, because some of them do, his body knows this is the time to ejaculate, not to pee, right? So
yes.
You have this body wisdom. So do women. We have the body wisdom to know when our body wants to ejaculate and when it wants to urinate through the same tube. It's just exactly the same. This is called homologous genitalia. It's the same parts, just arranged a little differently. They basically function the same. The prostate in a man is homologous to the Skene's glands in a woman, that urethral spongy tube.
The pool noodle.
The pool noodle that goes down the urethral tube has these glands in it. And just like when you get wet and turned on and your vagina gets slippery, that's from the blood plasma bringing fluid down through the vaginal mucosal layers and wetting the vagina. When you ejaculate, the watery blood plasma comes down through the Skene's glands and goes into the urethra. You have a contraction, and that squirts the fluid out. Sometimes the fluid is a trickle, or it's a little wellspring, or it's just a little wetness. Sometimes it's literally, you can see it shoot out if all, if everything's clear in front of you and there's nothing obstructing it, like a penis or a body or what have you. You can see it literally squirt out. And the more you do it, the easier it is to do. You need to be hydrated and very well relaxed, because arousal is built on a foundation of relaxation. And instead of tightening up, which a lot of women do to have an orgasm, they tighten everything and they really like crunch down and they try to concentrate the energy like into the clitoral area to like make that contraction happen so they have that orgasm. But a female ejaculatory, and I don't like to actually conjoin or conflate ejaculation and orgasm because they are two separate systems. When you ejaculate, sometimes you feel the orgasm piece of it. Other times you ejaculate and you had the orgasm a minute ago, or you're about to have an orgasm, because it's the same as a man. Just because he ejaculates and has an orgasm at the same time doesn't mean those two things have to happen together. They don't. Same with female ejaculation. You can have an orgasm, or you can have female ejaculation, or you can have an orgasmic ejaculation, but you have to push out. It's called birthing the orgasm. And that's a wonderful thing, because the G area, this spongy tissue in the top of the vaginal canal, when it gets engorged, it expands out of the vagina, and you can get to a lot more of the G area. And when you stroke that and you put pressure on it, it likes that stimulation. It helps the letdown of the ejaculate come into the urethra so that you can relax and open and push that ejaculate out. And if you empty your bladder before sex, you're not going to push out and pee. A lot of times when women have a big squirting session, when they're done, they go to the bathroom and they really pee this giant amount of pee, like all the pressure of all that ejaculate coming down also filled up the bladder with urine, and they pee a huge amount of pee after they've ejaculated. So they are definitely separate systems. All women can do it. You can do it a lot of different ways. The G-spot is a wonderful area of the vulva for pleasuring and for emotional release. And for a lot of women, when she gets to squirt her heart out, she gets to release a lot of emotion. And female ejaculation is like a good cry and an orgasm had a baby. It's like the blend of this, just, when you've had a good cry as a woman, and you feel wrung out, but you feel better, and you feel grounded, and you feel calm, and you just feel good. That's one of the benefits of female ejaculation. Plus, it just makes you feel like you've got, a powerful yoni, like you're just this goddess, this gushing goddess with divine nectar. It's like so deeply human, that to be able to surrender to your pleasure, to take your pleasure, to leave your mark, all of these things are extremely empowering for women.
Susan, I think I could listen to you read the phone book. We are out of time. Susan, you have to come back, because I know we're going to get the questions are just going to be nonstop. Until then, how do people you've got so much information out there. So how do people find the best source of information on all the stuff you've done?
My main website is personallifemedia.com. And there are thousands of articles, and you can search them in the search box. And pretty much it's like the oracle of Susan Bratton sex. So personallifemedia.com leads you to anything and everything of all the stuff that I've written over the last 15 years.
Wonderful. And we will put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Susan, like I said, you have to come back.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Awesome.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for everything. This is a lot of knowledge.
Yes.
Lots of things to to think about.
Just how I want to end this is
I know there's so many ways to do it. No, but this is fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Janna Breslin.
and Evan DeMarco. Today, we covered all things human sexual potential, and we didn't even scratch the surface. But Susan Bratton is a clear thought leader in this space. She's an orgasmanaut. She's been to the outer reaches, and she wants to help take you there. Head on over to personallifemedia.com. We'll put all that information in the show notes, and we will definitely have her back because we know you're all going to have some questions. So make sure to email those so that when we do have her back, we can get more into squirting or everything else that's Susan Bratton. Susan, thank you so much.
Susan, thank you.